I had come to Dravold Reach for filtration coils, not for people. That's what I kept telling myself afterward, on the long burn home, wondering how a man goes to a scrapyard for parts and comes back with a queen. Dravold Reach was a moon nobody had named on purpose. It had been a mining colony once, and when the ore ran dry, it became what every dead colony on the rim eventually becomes, a market for things nobody wanted to look at too closely. Salvage crews like mine came through twice a year for cheap labor contracts because running my rig, the Marrow, 4-man crew that should have been 8, wasn't sustainable. On my list of parts that day, in my own handwriting, I'd written extra hands, cheap. The auction yard was a fenced square of cracked permacrete with holding pens along one side, and a broker named Orduck worked the stage like he owned the moon under it. Orduck was a Ketheric, all joints and folded skin, with a voice built for selling things people were ashamed to buy. I'd dealt with him twice before, and never once seen him look at the people on his stage like they were people. He was midway through Lot 11, 2 big-shouldered men priced as mining muscle. When the handler dragged the next one up, she came up the ramp on her own feet, which I noticed because most of them didn't. She was gray all over, skin and hair both, the color of ash that's been rained on. Her eyes were the same flat color, no white to them, just gray going to gray. A yard tag at her throat read 12, and she stood straight, chin level, looking at nothing, while 400 buyers looked at her. Lot 12, Duck said, and he didn't even raise his voice for it. Defective stock. Skin condition, eye condition, won't take dye, won't take paint. Useless for display work, useless for anything that needs a face. Strong back, though, for those of you running quarries. He waved a hand at her the way you'd wave at a dent in a hull. Lot 12 is worthless. I'm not wasting bids on it. Anybody wants it for 10 chits. Raise a hand and take it off my dock before next lot. Nobody raised a hand. I watched her for a second. The way she kept her shoulders square even with 400 people deciding she wasn't worth 10 chits. And I thought about my filtration coils and the 4-man crew that should have been 8, and I raised my hand. Duke looked almost disappointed that someone had bothered. Sold. 10 chits, the salvager. He didn't even use my name. Get your paperwork from the dock clerk, and don't come back complaining about the skin thing, Vance. Lot 13. I paid my 10 chits, signed the bill of sale, and the clerk stamped it. As is, no returns, final sale in red ink. Standard, and I didn't think twice about it. Then I walked Lot 12. Vesha, though I didn't know that yet, back to my shuttle, and she walked beside me without being told to, without a word. On the Marrow, I gave her a bunk in the crew quarters, a ration pack, and the same instructions I gave any new hand. Mess at 0600. Don't touch the reactor housing, ask if you don't know. She nodded. Up close in the corridor's work lights, I noticed what I'd missed on the auction stage. The gray on her skin wasn't even. Thicker in patches like a dirty coat of paint, worn thin at the hairline and collarbones. And her eyes up close weren't flat gray at all. They were gray with something underneath, trying to get through, the way ice looks when there's water moving below it. I'd spent 11 years before the Marrow running decommission jobs on old chromal extraction rigs. Machines that strip pigment-bearing compounds, certain bloodlines for the dye trade. I knew that gray. I'd scrubbed it off bulkheads 100 times. It was drain residue, sealant that kept extraction stable, and it didn't wash off with water. It came off with solvent and patience. It always came off. Hold still, I told her, and got cutter solvent and a clean rag from my kit, and started at her temple where the coat was thinnest. She went rigid. Not in fear, I realized, but in the bracing you do when you expect something to hurt, and it's worth it anyway. It didn't hurt. The gray came away in a smear, slow like wiping frost off a window, and underneath her skin was a deep warm bronze, almost copper where the light caught it. I heard the door slide, and old Mara Teal, who'd run the Marrow's stores longer than I'd owned the ship, stopped dead in the frame with a crate of bolts in her arms. Spirit's sake, Vance, she said. Her eyes, I looked up. Where the gray had come away on one eye, the color underneath wasn't a color at all. It was every color, shifting, opal bright, gold into blue into green as she blinked, like oil on water but alive. Mara set the crate down carefully, the way you set something down when your hands have started shaking. I worked transport out of the Korath corridor 30 years back, Mara said, voice gone quiet. We used to get the proclamations, the Ilvain royal line, spectral-eyed, they're called. Eyes that shift like that. I thought it was a story sailors told. She looked at the woman on the bench, who'd gone very still, and then did something I'd never seen her do for anyone. Got down, slow, on one knee on the deck plate of my cargo bay. "Your Majesty," she said. "I am not anyone's Majesty anymore," the woman said. Her voice was steady, but it was the first time she'd spoken since the auction stage, and it cracked once on Majesty. I haven't been, since the regents sold me to keep my blood from being a problem for them. They painted me gray and sold me as defective stock so no one would know what they'd thrown away. She looked at the rag in my hand, gray-streaked, then at her own arm, half copper and half ash. I didn't think anyone would bother to clean it off. "It's just residue," I said. "Same as I've scraped off 100 bulkheads. Wasn't going to leave it on you." It came out plainer than I meant it, but I meant every word of it, something in her face. The first real thing I'd seen in it answered that. I should have known or Duck would come looking. Word travels fast on a dead moon, and 3 days later, while we were still in dock for the coils I'd come for, crew came up the Marrow's ramp uninvited. Or Duck stood in my cargo bay, looking at Vesha, clean now, in a borrowed crew jacket, going over inventory lists with Mara like she'd done it her whole life. And I watched something calculate behind his folded eyes. "There's been a clerical error," he said. "Lot 12 was misidentified. I'll refund your 10 chits, plus a generous consideration for your trouble, and the lot returns to my custody." "Show me the condition." Was, "The bill of sale says as is, no returns, final sale," I said. "Your own dock clerk stamped it. Your own rules, Castellan. You don't get to call something worthless on the stage invaluable in my cargo, paid just because the lighting changed." I pulled the bill of sale from my jacket, held it up, didn't hand it over. "According to this, I own a strong back for quarry work. 10 chits, final sale, no returns. Tell me different now, and you're telling me you lied on your own stage, in front of 400 witnesses who'll remember exactly what you called Lot 12. Or Duck's crew didn't move, because Or Duck didn't move." He understood, faster than I'd expected, that I'd just handed him a door he couldn't walk back through without, admitting he'd swindled the Ilvain royal line out from under every buyer on Dravold Reach, including whoever he answered to. He looked at Vesha for a long moment. She looked back at him with eyes the color of every sunrise he'd never bothered to watch, and didn't blink. "Final sale," Or Duck said, at last, and turned and left, and his crew went with him, and that was the last I ever saw of him. Cut the collar tag off her throat myself that evening, with wire snips from my own kit. It seemed wrong to leave it on one more hour once the paperwork said she didn't have to wear it. The little number 12 fell into my palm, and I almost threw it out the airlock before she stopped me. "Keep it," Vesha said. "Or give it to me. I want to remember what worthless looked like, so I know it when I see it again, in anyone." She closed my hand around it. Her fingers still faintly stained at the knuckles, resting over mine a moment longer than they needed to. "And I want to remember who didn't believe it." She stayed on the Marrow, not because she had nowhere else to go. Mara found Korath relief consulates that would have flown her home within the week, crown and ceremony and all of it. She stayed because, she told me once, somewhere past Dravold Reach with the moon shrinking behind us, she'd spent her whole life being looked at by rooms full of people who needed something from what she was. Exactly once, a man with solvent and a clean rag had looked at her like there was something worth cleaning off. That, she said, was a kind of crown too, and she wasn't in a hurry to give it back.